Welcome to Dear Grandchildren, A Tracker's Tale. I'm Michael Douglas, your guide on this journey into the heart of nature and the wisdom that it holds. Here, we blend the ancient skills of survival, tracking, and foraging with modern insights to help you reconnect to the wild within. In each episode, we'll explore timeless practices, share life-changing stories, and discover how the natural world can bring you mindfulness, resilience, and purpose. But this podcast is more than just a show. It's a community. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast, where you'll find exclusive content, question and answer sessions, bonus tales. For those seeking a deeper connection, explore our workshops and experiences, or even bring me to your community for an unforgettable adventure. Now, let's step off the trail and into a possible nature experience that could change how you see the world. Let's begin. I want you to imagine that you're at a function at somebody's house. It's a house in rural America. Now, you've grown up not so far away, and maybe you've even been to this place a few times, but it's the first time in this context where you open the sliding door at the back of the house and it spills out onto a deck, and off the deck you can see a yard, and beyond the yard is a wooded area. Now, you haven't gone out there yet, but you're going to, so just keep that in mind. And through interactions with people, there's a lot of people in this house. There's a party, but it's a civilized party. There's no loud music. It's intelligent conversation and interactions and laughter every once in a while. And it's engaging. The people there are engaging. You like the personalities and you're learning things and making connections. It feels good. But you want to get some air. Now, you go out onto that deck and you look around for a few minutes. Maybe there's somebody out there and they talk with you for, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes. They're having a cigarette or they're just finishing a drink and they needed to clear their headspace as well. And the conversation trails off. And as you're going in, because he has left you alone there for another 3 to 5 minutes, as you're going back in to get out from the cold, someone else goes out there as well. And you say hi on your way in, and the conversations pick up again, and you almost forget that you even went out there, except you find that you and the other 2 people who were out on the deck with you, quote unquote, are talking with each other, and it just dawns on you, hey, you were going out on the deck when I was coming in. And they say, what did you notice? Now, would you? The first person jumps in and says, well, it was a wooden deck. It was freshly painted at least 3 or 4 months ago. And they ask, how do you know that? And I'm a painter. Of course, I'm going to notice things like that. The house needs to be painted, by the way, but it looks like they got under the eaves about 3 years ago. The paint's still in good condition, and it was a latex. And then the other person pipes up. You say, yeah, I noticed the backyard. They have an old garden. I could tell because it's grass growing there now, but it's off and lumpy in comparison to the grass around it, which is much more established and thicker. You can still see clods of dirt where they used to have a garden. Maybe they're going to have another one, but they didn't have one last year. And the wood line seems like there's a lot of oaks and pines, older ones with new growth coming in. Did they have something come through, like a harvester, to selectively cut firewood? Because whoever did that did a great job. It must have been 8-12 years ago. But I could tell it was 8 to 12 years ago because the understory is so developed. And then the person who asked the question said, good eye. Yeah. Now, this person practices skills and says, you could tell that when the snowshoe hare come out to feed on the clover and the new growth in the garden, that they come out from the mountain laurel underneath that red pine, and that the fox who hunts the rock wall that we can't see but is distinguishable by the black cohosh growing underneath the butternut trees and that old maple marking the boundary line by which that rock wall goes. I could see the barbed wire from when this place was a field 80 years ago. And he continues to unravel detail after detail, telling where the barred owl hunts in the February time just before the mating ritual, and where the pileated woodpecker nests in that old barkless elm tree with the perfectly square but round opening in the middle where the nest is, and how the flight path of the Cooper's hawk comes in to spy on the chickens but leaves them alone because of the monofilament line. And it just, for 45 minutes and with no sign of stopping. Now, all of you were only out there for 5-6 minutes, but the level of detail that was made available to you was determined by your past experiences and the active engagement of your awareness tools. How did that one person plug themselves in so deeply to get that much more information than you? And wouldn't you like to have access to that? Well, maybe you wouldn't. We turn it off intentionally because of advertising, of people shouting at us to buy things or to stay in the line or sit down and shut up and raise your hand if you have a question. There's so many harmful stimuli that want or encourage us to go in our awareness. It's hard to drive in rush hour traffic if you've spent all day empathizing with a shy introvert who you care about but needs help and doesn't know how to ask for it. And then suddenly you're in the din of people cutting you off and giving you the finger, cursing or swearing or singing at the top of their lungs to get rid of the stress of their workday. To be that open, an antenna, and to take in all of that stimuli, even if it weren't angst, anger, hopelessness, despair, futility, dread, even if it weren't projecting that level of dis-ease, it would still be overwhelming, like being at a fairground and trying to play chess or having an intelligent conversation during a roller coaster ride. It's disjaunting and disconcerting after a time. Now, some people thrive on it, but most of them will collapse in exhaustion after the rush of it. And so there is this exchange going on. And we're going to get into the safety mechanisms, how you can keep your awareness up and running and still keep your sanity, but only after learning how to approach a more full experience in your daily life by plugging in your whole antenna array. Because there has to be systems in place. It's almost too overwhelming to tackle in one lump sum. And when we do, what tends to get our attention is what we've already got in our filing cabinets for what's important for our success and for our survival. We also tend to gravitate our awareness towards those things we perceive as a threat, even if they're, well, perceived and not actual threats. Rock climbing as a sport, sure, has its fatalities. There are old climbers and there are bold climbers, but there are no old, bold climbers. The tendency to believe that rock climbing is high risk is what keeps it safe. The tendency to believe that driving your car is relatively safe is what makes it dangerous. And so there's this law of extremes that you need to recognize. And on a base level, when we're cold, we seek warm. When we're hot, we seek cool areas. The deer do the same thing. In the summer, they're bedding down in the sphagnum moss in the swamps because sphagnum is moisture-rich and a refrigerant. But in the coldest of days, those deer are bedding down in the grasses, in openings getting full sun. And then they have to move during the night to keep their calories burning so that they stay warm. So there's the law of extremes, and then there's the push and pull of lack and bounty. On a practical level, we go where there's calories, right? We go where there's money. We go where there's opportunity. Black Friday is like watching, the mayflies hatching on a lake. They're all coming out at once. It's a feeding frenzy of sharks. And like sharks, they'll even bite each other in order to get that video game, that latest release, whatever it is. People are fighting over boxes like piranha on a feed. But if you're wise, if you're that mossy-backed 7-year-old deer, you don't run from every stimuli. And you're not the last one to react to the bird alarms either. You've been around a bit. You've been shot at a few times. You get to pay attention more. You speak less. And when you do speak, it means something. And unfortunately, those young adolescents won't hear it. Right? Part of breaking the routines of survival living is to open up your antenna array in a systematic fashion that allows you more options and choices, often well before the masses of people who are not so aware as you, or so focused on getting that good deal or not being late for the next appointment, that they're oblivious to how to break the cycle that they live in, that we all live in to some degree, that treadmill that allows us to pay the bills. We don't have to step off that path entirely, folks, but we can start to change how that wheel might treat us until we step into a wheel that we design ourselves. That is a full life. The process of that is a full life. You don't have to wait till you get to the goal, because we all have the same goal, whether we want it or not, and that's a pine box 6 feet under. That's the end goal. If you're going to punt, know that that's where it's going. So craft a process that's enjoyable to you, that's mildly challenging and allows you to grow. A process that when you make mistakes, nobody gets permanently injured. And ideally, nobody gets hurt. But here's the kicker. You're going to get hurt. You engaged in life, you're going to make enemies. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to forget important things. You're going to burn the casserole, stub your toe, accidentally go through your boot with the hatchet that you just sharpened. There are things that are going to happen to you because you're alive. And those things, if they don't kill you, may not make you stronger, but they'll make you wiser. All right, now I'm talking with 2 broken vertebrae in my neck, all of the bones in my wrists pinned and screwed together, history of 2 broken knees. I can't even remember the concussions. There's a joke in there somewhere. It's not the age, it's the mileage, and I'm proud of it. Yeah, I wish I had the body that I had when I was 22, before I got shot, stabbed, fell down the stairs, almost drowned a few times. There's a law of diminishing returns there. But the story. I've been sprayed by skunks multiple times, and I'd do it again. I've been hit by a porcupine's tail. And there's things that I haven't experienced yet that I'm looking forward to that most people would cringe. But if I don't look forward to them, what am I going to do with them? Cower? Ignore them until they don't happen? See, I'm going after my life to make it full. And maybe someone, rightly so, would critique me and say, well, why don't you sit and just listen and enjoy what you have? You're right. I need to do more of that too. I need to fill my cup with nothing because it's just as valuable, if not more so, than doing something. I agree. That's a blind spot that I work on. And maybe the working on it is why it eludes me. I need to surrender to peacefulness, to put away that yammering logical mind long enough to be fully present more. I have to do it more. But the wanting of it makes it go away. It's like this intangible ether. Grandfather Ray would say, sometimes the best thing you can do is to do nothing. And doing nothing doesn't mean you're not accomplishing anything. Doing nothing is when you get to digest, absorb, experience. It's like the reward of it, to be in the fullness of being. And you can do nothing while you're splitting wood. It becomes an effortless flow where time slips through your fingers. People do nothing as they commute. They almost miss their exit because they don't realize that an hour has gone by. But doing nothing and engaging your senses, that happens to a lot of people when their car is rolling over end. I was racing a Monte Carlo with bald tires on my little 71 Dodge Dart in the rain, going north towards Red Bank, and I hydroplaned. I lost it. 80 85 miles an hour. Rolled the car 4 or 5 times. And in that moment of rolling, everything lasted forever. I remember the radio was still on and the wipers were still going as I'm rolling over and over and over again. And the thought, oh, I'm going to be late for work. And then crawling out of the car while it was on its side, just as the state trooper, the New Jersey State Police, comes up to give me a ticket for my bald tires. Yeah. But that's an experience I have. And it's stacked on experiences just as visceral. The moray eel that got washed up in the tidal surge and had to hop across the coral before disappearing between my legs into that little crack I was looking in that went down 30, 40 feet. And I could see way down into the bottom of the northern part of Guam. And I think in that same area, my friend David and I found a Japanese Zero from World War II. Yeah. Jumping from tree to tree and breaking my neck. Going swimming in icy waters. Touching a fissure on the nose as it came out of a woodpile in front of over 30 scouts who were there to learn bowling and sheep bend. Catching ducks by swimming underneath them and grabbing their feet and then letting them go in small cabins to wake people up and singing the birdie song while they flapped around and quacked in a panic. Covering myself up in mud and sneaking around at night with a blowgun and marshmallows, being hunted by other people who were doing the same. And doing this to pay the bills. Yeah. Your awareness is going to bring you to where you direct it. And you're going to use your logical mind to figure out how to make it sustainable for yourself. But your logical mind isn't who you are. So we're going to use that tool, that logical mind, to categorize an approach towards your awareness. And I want to give you an example of one of the ways to do that. I call it, because it was given to me in this terminology, the sacred question. Why is this here? What is this telling me? What should I do about it? But there's this emotive piece behind it. If you want these tools to work, you have to plug in some investment of emotion, whether it's a passion to learn, a hunger to master, I got to keep my family safe. I don't know, whatever works for you, but try not to taint it with too much fear and doom and gloom. That's going to find you anyway. But if you start to develop that ecological ideal with this passion to make, I need to be strong enough to provide not just a survival level of existence for my family. I want them to flourish. I want them to see the challenge of life and embrace it. To have enough resilience through hardship, but not too much that it discourages them. To think creatively. To understand what peace means and the precious gift that it is, because they know what it's like in the absence of peace. But not to be warmongers. The balance is this razor's edge dance. The sacred question, why is this here? What is this telling me? What should I do about it? Toward improving your condition. Right? So I'm going to plug my antenna array into the landscape from that platform. If I did it from a different platform, I'd get different results. And now I'm going to ask questions using my logical mind of that primal emotive self. And I'm going to start using the Thanksgiving address. And it starts with humanity. The Thanksgiving address as given to us by Jake and Judy Swamp of the Wolf Clan, of the Mohawk Nation, with an intention to have good neighbors. That we practice these skills not to become Mohawk, but to become good neighbors who have a degree of awareness, not only of ourselves, but our effect on everything around us. So I plug in to a landscape, and my first question is human influence. And I start with ancestral influence. What did this place look like 500 years ago? Well, most of Maine, 100 years ago, were rolling hills, no trees. sheep farms and silage farms for feeding the sheep. That was it. All the trees had been mowed down long ago. Right? Now, 200 years ago, yeah, this place was a forestry mecca. Logs being sent downriver for 100 years straight, feeding the global hunger for wood for construction. And 500 years ago, it was said a squirrel could move from the coast to the Mississippi without touching the ground because of the trees, and they were vast. You think the old-growth forests in California are special because of the breed of tree? Have you seen a western hemlock and how big it is? The hemlocks here in the east were the same size. We're on third and fourth generation forest now. These are young trees. This is a young forest cut over too many times to be able to see the benefits of a rich understory, of intentionally, multiple generationally, intentionally grown and cultivated biodiversity for food, for medicine. If you don't believe me, you've never seen the fisheries carved into the coral in Hawaii, or the rich bounty that exists to this day in the lands of the Sami, where reindeer are intentionally moved, and in their wake, in their feces, the seeds of countless berries, lingonberries, cloudberries, bilberries, and blueberries. Cranberries. There's so much biomass that they take more moose out of their forest each year during hunting season than we have in the entirety of New England. So that intentional participation in nature with this oral tradition of whatever you do here affecting 7 generations, or being the stewards or being the caretaker, that was a thing. That was a real thing. Taking that back and plugging it into your daily life, your bill paying schedule. I pay ahead a year in case I get hurt. And then I pay each month for the next year. And if I have a little extra, maybe I can get up to 15 months or 2 years, right? I'm setting my future self up and my family's future up for resilience, flexibility, more choices and outcomes. And I start with, what is the ancestral influence in this region? Because I want to know why it changed. What caused behaviors to change on such a vast scale so that we can avoid sudden change if it's necessary. We change course and make it a minimal change, an easy to adjust to change, not a massive die-off change, not a Great Depression change. Next, so I have the ancestral influence. What were the migratory routes, right? How did the people 2,000 years ago interact with this landscape? For instance, controlled burns for blueberries. Fish rodeos, where you jump into the water with the sturgeon and you hang on to the biggest one for as long as you can. Can you imagine the biomass that you could just walk into the Kennebec River, turn around, and then with your hands outstretched and your legs waddling forward, corner the fish enough to jump on one and hang on for dear life? We could bring that back. And maybe not in my lifetime, but I've been planting trees and comfrey and nettles, and guerrilla gardening's a thing. Planting comfrey around the base of trees in public parks so that there's an important medicinal when needed. It's also a nitrogen fixer. It's also green nitrogen that can be cut and placed at the base of other plants so that they can grow. It's incredible what we can do with guerrilla gardening and intentional harvest. You know, the acorns shut down because there's not enough people eating the acorns, and the rodents are overpopulated because we're not participating. You don't believe me? Look at what both North and South Korea and Portugal are doing with acorns. They don't have to worry about the trees going dormant. The trees produce every year. We have weevil infestations because of neglect. Wild rice flourishes in the traditional manner of gathering the rice. We cast the seeds out and away from the central stalk, growing more lush rice. We also put a third over each side of the boat every time we flick those seeds with our rice wands. That's not inefficiency. That's providing a healthier population of waterfowl, which also creates eggs. Snapping turtles, again, eggs. Fish, meat that can be dried. So we're increasing the bounty of the landscape as a whole as we harvest the rice, and we're doing the rice a favor by allowing it to spread and grow more vigorously, thus providing more meat, fish, and eggs for us and everybody else. Even the fatty raccoon instead of the starved raccoon gives us material for torches and lamps and for waxing cordage and preserving wood in its fat. You see the ramifications for reading the landscape for where it has been and where it is now allows us to project where we should go with it. So there's the first piece of your survival approach. The one missing one that I want to add before we hold until the continuation of this, how do we approach survival, is your survival needs. Notice how I start with, what did the ancestors do here? And then I usually add, what is the modern flow of survival materials here? Shelter, water, fire, food. And then what is it for me? Survival needs for me. Where would I build a shelter? Is there enough materials, or are there hazards? Where would I harvest water and then fire-making material? How could I develop a water container system? Is it empty bottles and cans because the woods is rife with them? Or do I have to coal burn a bowl or a spoon? Or use a tarp with hot rocks and dig a hole and make a bowl and fill it with water using sphagnum moss to wring into it like a sponge, or my t-shirt. Shelter, water, fire, and food. And I could be at a bar, or I could be at a club on the beach or a neighbor's house, and I'm always playing this game. What was the ancestral influence of this place that I've never been to before? What is the modern influence that has happened here? When I say modern, over the last 50 years. And what are my survival needs, and how are they made available to me in this location? Now that is the groundwork for the rest of it. The rest of it is almost fun. But those first three pieces, they create security so that you can have fun with your awareness tools and not be shaken or disoriented. Because without the grounding of what has happened here with humanity for 2,000 years, 100 years, 50 years, and how can I satisfy my survival needs now? It's easy to get disoriented. Remember who you are, what you are, and where you are. And then, well, then we could really grow in our awareness. So, that is the next podcast. Episode 15. Growing in your awareness. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Dear Grandchildren, A Tracker's Tale. If today's journey resonates with you, I invite you to share it with others who long for a deeper connection to nature and themselves. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts for bonus episodes, exclusive question and answer sessions, and more tales from the wild. Your support through subscriptions, feedback, or simply spreading word keeps this flame of ancestral wisdom alive. And if you're ready to take the next step, contact the Central School at primitiveskills.com or email staff@primitiveskills.com to learn all about our workshops, experiences, lectures, expeditions, and how we can bring these teachings directly to you. Until next time, may your trails be clear and your heart full. Keep exploring and keep the fire burning.